The rhythm of healing, the octaves method. O is for observation, through stillness we find meditation and breath work that quiet the mind. In silence we listen, the answers are clear, awareness emerges, dissolving the fear. C is for compassion, for self and for all, embracing the good, the struggles, the fall. With kindness we grow, we nurture, we mend, learning to love ourselves as we extend. T is for therapy, a path we explore. Daily we practice unlocking the door. From journaling to mindfulness, healing begins. Each step is a victory as peace settles in. A is for animals and laughter so bright, like children at a play, their joy taking flight. With playfulness and movement, we rediscover the way to heal through the fun that we often delay. V is for victuals, nourishing and pure, detoxifying the body and keeping us sure. We choose what we eat with intention and grace, fueling our journey at our own pace. E is for exercise, where movement is free. We stretch and we bend in sweet harmony. Flexibility grows with choices we make. In strength and in stillness, our bodies awake. S is for socialize, where self-growth begins. Others reflect our triggers and the places within. Through relationships, our true selves we find, growing and healing with each tie that binds. The octaves method, where all behavior makes sense. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 5 of the Trauma and Social Work Podcast. I am KJ Alexander here with my co-host, Tonya Octave, and today we have a lot of important information to dive into. But before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and let Tonya tell a little bit more about herself and what this podcast is about.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tonya Octave, and we are going into Season 5 of Trauma and Social Work Podcasts, where we will be discussing and diving deep into my book called Heal the Mind, 7 Strategies Towards Mental Wellness, Happiness, and Success, Exploring Trauma, Mental Wellness, and Ways to Live a More Balanced Life. And before we begin, just a simple reminder that this podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not intended for medical, psychological, mental health, or legal advice. Although I'm a licensed professional, this is not a formal type of treatment. We may talk about things like hypnosis and meditation and things that we would do in a therapeutic, from a therapeutic perspective, but it's not a form of treatment. For individual questions about your wellness, your happiness, and your success, please seek out a professional. And if you are experiencing a mental health crisis, do call 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.
Great, awesome. That was amazing. So with that being said, I want to make sure I tell the audience, if you haven't already, follow this page on Spotify, YouTube, and any other platforms we post episodes on. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming episodes in the future. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is the Trauma and Social Work Podcast. My name is KJ Alexander, joined with my co-host, Tonya Octave. And today we are continuing our discussion into the book, Heal Thy Mind. And we're going to start off this episode by diving into the section of the book talking about forgiveness today. So I wonder, Tonya, if you can kind of Detail to our audience what this forgiveness list chart is in the book.
So in the book is just an example of how to really start beginning the idea with the ego about forgiveness, because the ego is
Okay.
going to like not really want to have these topics, especially if the individual, the personality, felt that somebody did something wrong to them, because the ego is going to say, nope, you still need some protection, so we're still here. So this is an idea, a technique that I came up with to start having it, and it really is coming up with a list of individuals in your reflection of where there may need to be some forgiveness.
Okay.
Parents. I always say parents, because those are the people that we're born to, and usually they teach us things throughout life, and some of that we receive it and some of that we want to reject it, and that then has some emotions connected to it. And so usually I'll say parents are probably on those caregivers, the people who raised us growing up, people that we've had past relationships with, like exes. There tends to
Mm.
sometimes have these unresolved things. There might be feelings of resentment or frustration or anger, or like you did something bad to me in terms of that, and I cannot forgive you because you were such an awful person. Um, as a parent, sometimes there are issues that come up with our own kids, that we feel like our own kids did things to hurt us, that were maybe they didn't want to follow our direction, or they maybe took a different route in life. And so we have feelings of maybe resentment or maybe anger. Sometimes that may come up. So maybe even kids, our kids, biological step, or even pseudo kids that we've taken responsibility for in terms of raising, we may have feelings that are unresolved. Friendships, people we identify as enemies. And then I think about like forgiveness. And part of that, which really should be in the center of that, is the forgiveness for the self. Because sometimes, like in the prior episode that we talked about, where it was difficult in terms when that self-critical voice comes up. And so then how do we learn how to forgive parts of ourselves that maybe are associated with shame, things maybe we've done in our past that we have regrets for, we are apologetic for? Like, how do we learn to go through the process of self-forgiveness? When I think about just understanding forgiveness, it's really not about condoning or forgetting something hurtful that was done to you. It's about freeing yourself from this emotion of anger, from this emotion of resentment. Forgiveness is a gift that you can give yourself, because it brings you towards the state of peacefulness and the state of healing. And although I agree, I think that it's okay, it's helpful, it's useful, it's beneficial to go through the process, but not to get stuck in the process of forgiving, to know that the end goal is to forgive, not to remain in this process of I'm forgiving. And I think
Okay.
that, I'll read a little bit about the book, what I wrote about here in terms of forgiveness, because it's so important.
Okay.
Um, so establishing, let's see. I'll start here on page 47. Some clinicians would disagree, saying that one does not need to forgive, especially in trauma cases. I think the ability or inability to forgive says more about you than about your trauma, more about you than the person who hurt you. And as a trauma expert in my field, from different people considered to be experts as well, will say different things, that you don't have to forgive the person who harmed you because it's associated with trauma, associated with abuse. That I don't think that they encourage you to hold on to it, but the encouragement is not to release it. And so my perspective, which may not always be in agreement with other people, particularly in my profession, but I'll say we forgive people all of the time for everything, period. There's no other thing that goes beyond that period, because there's nothing that was done to me. There were things that were done for me for my growth. And at the end of the day, my spirit is guiding all of it because I trust the divine and the plan that has been created for me to live this beautiful life. And so that's my frame. That's my way of thinking and operating. It doesn't mean that it will sit right for everyone else, because everyone's also entitled to their experiences. But when I think about it in terms of trauma, I've heard some of the most painful stories of trauma. I've heard about countless things in terms of abuse and neglect, from kids, from infants, all the way to elderly population. So I've heard stories that would not only bring tears to people's eyes, but may give them nightmares, may make it difficult for them to sleep, to eat, because of the pain that people have shared parts of their lives with me in our interactions. And I still say, at some point, when are you going to release this? Because forgiveness is about your releasing the anger, your releasing the resentment. Nothing was done for you. It was done to help you, to support you for something bigger. You just don't know what that bigger is yet, because you haven't got there yet. And so that's where maybe some of the patience comes in. What do you think about in terms of your understanding of forgiveness?
Yeah, so I think what you said is very true. And, people may have things that work for them that don't work for everybody else. But it can be hard at times to kind of, walk that fine line between forgiveness and forgetting completely. So, I guess I would ask you, in your opinion, how does somebody kind of walk that thin line between wanting to be forgiving, whether it be of themselves or somebody else, but also changing behavior and not allowing the same behavior to continue? Because after a certain point, you just can't keep forgiving yourself or other people if there's no change behavior. So, and I know there's no one answer for everybody, but just in general, how would you suggest someone go about maintaining that balance?
So, with my thought process and my frame, this is what works for me. No one does anything bad to me. So there's no need for me to forgive them. If people say something that maybe is disrespectful or belittling, and then they apologize, and then maybe there's no change in behavior, and they keep doing something, that says more about that character.
Mm,
That's just telling me a lot of information about how painful this person is showing up in the world, that they have to operate like that they can't
yeah.
see that they can't get past the state of being stuck. And so I have the compassion for them. I'm sorry to see that they're struggling with life that way, because I don't live life that way. I don't live life with a billion apologies.
Mm,
And so when people show up in that way, I can see that they are struggling and that it is difficult for them. And maybe I'm the one person that, although I would have a firm boundary, or I may use my paternal voice because I'm not going to necessarily be abused or threatened and,
yeah.
things like that. But that maybe they never had a compassionate relationship. Maybe they never had anyone that forgave them endlessly. Because
Mm,
when I read different sources about God and the relationship that people have with the Creator, isn't that kind of like what we think God shows up as, no matter what you call him in terms of your name, your religion, or your spiritual beliefs? Don't we at least all agree with one thing, that God is loving of all? Why would we show up differently? Because I don't think I'm better than God.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that is one concept that no one's disagreeing about, is that, you know, the universe or God, whatever you want to refer to that as, is definitely a source of love and energy. And not all things good, not all things bad, but a
Mhm.
combination of both. And I think that's
So,
very important.
and you mentioned something important. So it says more about the other person than me. If you
Yeah.
notice that you are apologizing a lot in a relationship, like you feel like you can't get it right, you're always making mistakes, someone always seems critical of you, if you feel like you are showing up in the relationship, then ask for help. Because what is working in terms of you trying to figure out life yourself, it is not, you're repeating the same patterns. And why would you want to suffer like that? Ask for help and get help so you don't have to keep apologizing, so that you can work with the unconscious mind and over time figuring out why it is that you're constantly doing the same behaviors that's making you feel like you need to apologize for. Work with hypnosis. Learn how to move your negative self talk to positive self talk. Learn how to work with aggression. Learn how to move anger into strength and power. Ask for help. So if you are the person on the other end that is showing up that way, that would be my message. Is, do you keep doing it? Do you keep repeating the pattern? Then you kind of already know the outcome.
Mm.
You do. You've already
Yeah.
produced it. You're already living it. It's already manifesting in your life. Unhappiness, dissatisfaction, it's already there, right there, present right now.
Yeah, no, they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different
Mhm.
result. So you definitely can't continue to do the same things that you've been doing and expect to get a different result in life. So that definitely holds true for sure.
So maybe part of the message is I forgive everyone all of the time for everything because that's
Mm.
just how it is. I can't see or understand anything different. That doesn't mean that there may not be moments that are more difficult. So people will ask me questions. Well, what if someone came in your house and like hurt you and hurt your family, or someone did something very painful for you, or sued you and made you go through this whole legal battle, or harmed your kids, or put a bunch of bad negative stuff on social media? So we could talk about all what ifs. I don't
Yeah.
know, because none of that has ever happened to me. So I can't tell you really how I would show up. But at least one of those reflections would be, if things are coming up for me and I am getting triggered, then that's an indication that I have something I get to work on. It's another joy. It's another experience to say, oh, got triggered. Uh-oh, anger's trying to show up because this person stole my car. Like, what do I do about it? Because I really want to go beat this person up. Like, anger might show up, right? And
Yeah.
so learning how to navigate that, I see it as another opportunity of growth, not
Okay.
something for this person, because this person is clearly has some stuff going on that's being
Okay.
worked on through the divine that I don't even know a part of the plan. And
Yeah.
so I just offer forgiveness and maybe even thankfulness, because now you've shown
Mm.
me that I have more work to do. So thank you. Thank you for allowing me to know that anger is still there. And maybe it's
Mm.
deep down, and maybe it doesn't come up often, but it did come up this time. So now I need to go back and reflect and figure out why it's still there, and how to allow anger to move through the body and not get stuck in the body, particularly in the heart. I don't want a heart attack.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. You don't want that at all. But it sounds like to me your perspective is that forgiveness is not even really so much for the other person, but it really is for you, the person who is giving the forgiveness, because you don't want to hold any type of negative or hard feelings within your heart because it may cause you to have some health issues or whatever the case may be down the road. So I think that's a very powerful perspective to have because you kind of take it and you flip it around on the other person. You make it not even really about them. You make it about yourself. So
Mm.
if I'm forgiving somebody because I feel like they've wronged me or they've done something that was immoral or incorrect or whatever the case, I'm not just forgiving them because of what they do, because it's not like I'm arresting them or putting them in some type of mental prison, but
Mhm.
I'm doing it more as to free myself and to be able to put myself in a better space to move and operate in life without having to have such expectations that people won't act in a certain way. So I think that's a very powerful perspective to have.
I love that. To act in a way that people like, the expectation is that who am I to think that people aren't going to act in a particular way? We are living in a time of chaos. Why wouldn't people act in chaos? There's a part of trauma therapy or trauma theory that says we expect people who have lived these complex and developmental traumas to act normal. How they are acting is normal. They are responding to a situation that is abnormal. Their behavior is normal. For instance, if you grow up in a home and there is physical abuse or emotional abuse or sexual abuse, your body is going to respond in a way. You're going to develop certain thoughts and feelings and associations about who you are in this world. That is normal. What the medical model does is put a label on it. Ah, you're oppositional defiant. Ah, I see major depression. Oh, is that dysthymia coming up? Which is another form of long term depression. Or you
Okay.
got post traumatic stress disorder. How do you feel about having that one? Right? Like,
Hmm.
so then we'll put a label on it as if it is abnormal. We should reframe that to say, it is normal when you experience a trauma for your mind to process it at nighttime. And some of those processing may be scary dreams. Some of those processing may be vivid dreams. Sometimes you may have difficulty eating because the digestive system shuts down when there's a trauma. That
Mm.
makes sense. This other glob that's spread around in terms of in my field in therapy doesn't make sense.
Mm. Okay. No,
Follow the
very
natural
interesting.
paths and the natural order of life.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Can I give another example?
Yeah, please go ahead.
When a kid goes to school and can't focus on taking a test, and the teachers wonder why the kid doesn't complete homework assignments, um, and is getting bad grades, is there some sympathy given to that child, especially if it becomes known to the adults that that child is suffering in a home where there's a lot of emotional abuse, where that child is told every day that they are not smart enough, that they maybe need to get a job instead of go to school, or given other messages about how they are as a person? Is that taken into consideration? Or is the school expecting the child to show up in the same way other kids show up who don't experience that time, that type of pain, that type of sadness, that type of disconnection by the spirit?
Mm.
They're still expected to show up in the same way. Or we'll give them an IEP or put them on a special program and add some labels. Now, I'm not saying that's
Mm.
not bad. I'm not saying that's bad, because I definitely believe like kids should be given some special stuff when taking it. All it is to say is that sometimes we make the assumption that people should show up in this normal way. When an experience happens, we don't know what will be normal for that person until they show up. That's what's normal. And then as symptoms develop that are uncomfortable for that person, we help them navigate those symptoms. But we don't label it as abnormal or deficient.
Mm.
They're responding to trauma or abuse in the way they respond.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, it's a tough conversation to have, but I feel like these talks are needed because there's a lot of people who, go through this and it's very real for them and it's real life. And I even think of like traumatic experiences. People need to, or people are still learning how to forgive maybe even society in general. A lot of people may have been told one thing, that society will work out a certain way, just, follow the rules and go to college or whatever. And they may have done that, and it may not have worked out the way they were kind of told. Maybe they got some bad information or some misleading information along the way. But especially as a young person, you're very vulnerable, and you're very open to believing what people tell you, especially if they seem like they're older and respectable person. But a lot of times people take advantage of younger people and use information to, get them into bad loans or whatever the case may be. So how would you suggest that people who have kind of been through something like that go about learning to forgive the people who have maybe misled them, or even like some bad advice they may have taken when they were younger, but now they want to move forward in life and they want to focus on transitioning to another stage in life? How do they go about doing that while still maintaining and living in the current society today?
Wisdom starts to develop, and I think we probably can agree that wisdom develops over time.
Yeah,
So
for
we
sure.
usually are not wise in our 20s. We're developing some wisdom. And as we go into our 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s, like wisdom comes along with the experiences that we get as we age. So then to your question, I say, lesson learned. You got me this
Mm.
time. Now I know I should read the fine print. Now I should know, like, maybe I should ask more questions the next time I get my car repaired or sign up for a loan. Lesson learned. There's that thing on social media that says, like, you fooled me once, like, shame on you. You fooled me twice, shame on me.
Yeah.
Right? We talked about accountability in our last episode. So it's not about I'm mad at you a third time, a fourth time. I'm allowing you to keep doing to it. Now we show up and we're like the sixth time and we keep repeating the patterns because I didn't ask for help when I noticed it the second time. And so I
Mm.
repeated in a relationship the third time. And I'm still dating the same person in the fourth time, even though the name has changed. The same dramatic experience are occurring in my relationships because I didn't ask for help. And I said I could do it on my own. So then when will you ask for help? Will it be after the 10th failed relationship
Mm.
or the second
Yeah.
failed relationship? I shouldn't call them failed relationships because they're all part of the growing experience.
Yeah, it definitely is a learning process. And I think that's
Mhm.
something that's definitely harder for people to do early in life, is learn how to take certain losses and turn them into lessons, because
Mhm.
nobody likes to feel like they lost something or they feel like they missed out. But if you can take the lesson from it and that experience moving forward, I think that is when the experience becomes most beneficial.
And it is a lesson. Life
Yeah.
is a lesson. This is how you accumulate wisdom. So when you're in your 20s and you're trying to figure out how to be independent and live outside of your parents, know that you are learning, you are developing wisdom. Everything you're going through, the bad, the good, the indifferent, it is all building part of your character. It's just what path do you want to go towards? Do you want to go towards a healing path or do you want to go towards a diseased state path?
Hmm.
I'll continue reading here. It
Okay.
says, to me, forgiveness is a process of letting go. It is letting go of the negative self talk, letting go of the grudges and bitterness that occupy space in your mind, blocking space for positive self talk. Those negative aspects are like a bad relationship. You can't get rid of them. If you stay in the relationship, you may get sick and you build up feelings of resentment and anger and hatred. You are constantly activating your fight, flight, freeze, and I'm going to say fawn response systems, which can increase your risk for heart disease, diabetes, depression, all of which we've talked about, KJ. Forgiveness is giving yourself a gift, after allowing conflicts and negative emotions and beliefs to leave you, to leave the mind, to leave the body, to leave the spirit, you can release blockages, creating space for positive self talk and healing.
Hmm.
That's the freeing of yourself. If you ever
Right.
met someone who's like that, you will feel their energy and they are just so high vibrational that it sends like electricity through your body.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure. Definitely very well said. And that's so true. I'm sure we've all met people or encountered people that we've been around
I
that
don't know
just
about that one, KJ. I know we've all met people where we cringe and we like, God, I don't want to hang out with the person. They're so negative. Oh my God, they're always depressed. I don't want to be around. I think we've all met that. I don't know if we've been in environments of people who have high vibrational energy. If
mm,
that was the case, then we would be sharing it around the world. We're sharing depression and frustration and anger and hatred and animosity. That's what we're sharing in the world. Something has to change
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a
within
big
us.
part of that, yeah, I was just going to get to that. A big part of that is that people have to want to change. The desire has to be there. And I mean, if you're a person who looks at your life and there's aspects about your life that you don't like, whether it be your mental health status or whatever the case may be, then how could you not want to change? I guess would be my perspective. But I could also see how it would be hard for people to want to change if they're so used to living a certain way in a certain lifestyle. And we get used to things, whether it be, the certain food that we eat or the people that we talk to, whether they're toxic or not. We just kind of get used to things and we kind of
Mhm.
stay in those routines. And it can be hard to break, but I think that is where the healing starts, is having the desire to want to break those toxic cycles. And really, I think people need to take a good look in the mirror at times and really ask themselves who they are. And it may not be something that you have an answer to right away, but I think even just asking that question is something that's good to start with.
I do it every day. I don't even advise. I
Oh,
say I do
really?
it. You said people need to. We need to. I look in my
Yeah,
mirror
yeah,
in
for
the mirror
sure.
and say, Tanya, how are you showing up? What grade are you going to get today? What grade did you get today before you go to sleep?
Okay.
How are we judging in a positive way, but also using accountability and not self criticism to move us towards a high vibrational expression of our own energy?
Mm.
And are we giving ourselves report cards about that in an honest way and in a motivating way?
Yeah, that is the question. And, that's a very high level of accountability you talk about when you say giving yourself a grade. Like, that's even an idea I've tried to implement in my own life. Like, if I were to give myself a grade for every day, the actions I did every day and things I did and didn't do, what would the grade be? And even for me, it's hard to be accountable because you may want to say you did an A, but did you really? Was it really a B minus or a C plus? So that level of accountability, that's very very high level for sure. And that may not be the most common thing for people to have, but I think if you can at least have that mindset that every day does count and you want to try to improve, even if it's just by 0.1% every day, if you just build those building blocks every day, and then day by day you will start to see progress. It doesn't have to happen overnight, and it won't happen overnight. Nothing important, nothing powerful happens overnight. So once you have that mindset, you kind of adopt those thinking, those thoughts, then I think you can begin to go down that journey of healing.
Well, and I even think, even like with the report card, that's why it's good to kind of use a another party, not really a third party. I guess it'd be a second
Yeah.
party, like a therapist or somebody that you can work with that can be reflective. This is not to do with family. This is not to do with friends, because it's that mirror effect that comes up and they'll tell you things about you, all kinds of other stuff. But to do with maybe a neutral party, somebody, a trained professional. But then I also thought, like, who's your idea? Who is the person that you have in your environment that has that high vibrational energy? Can you reflect with that person? And
Yeah.
in your self reflection, if you don't have physical contact with that person, either on, like through various ways. Maybe that person has passed and is not like physically living or anything like that. How can you still kind of evaluate? I give this person an A in terms of being humble. How did I give myself an A, and what do I see as a parallel process that I am trying to create that I saw in the image or the experience with this other person who is an A for me in terms of how they show up in dealing with the emotion of humbleness. So you can use criteria. Just don't use criteria of the 95% of the people in the world who are probably moving towards a disease state and away from a healthy state. You should engage in those conversations. When you do self-reflection, you self-reflect with people who have high vibrational energy, that you feel it in your bones through your cells as it navigates when they talk. You're like, oh, this is juicy stuff. I like it. That type of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those are the type of people that we all aspire to be and to be around. So definitely could use more of that and a lot less negativity in life for sure. So I think that's a good place to wrap it up for today. Is there any information you want to leave the audience with before we close out?
Just that I'll be adding some links in terms of YouTube, updates on my YouTube channel and updates on my social media. I'm known as a holistic clinician, so there'll be more updates. I'm doing a lot more stuff in terms of ego health as we go through this process. So a lot more hypnosis videos, things like that I just want to share.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in to today's episode. And until next time, everyone, be safe and bye-bye.
Bye. Wraps up another episode. I hope today's discussion provided clarity and tools you can use in your daily life. If you're ready to take the next step in the healing journey, I'd love to connect. Head over to my website to schedule a free 15-minute consultation. It is a great opportunity to ask questions and see how we can work together. And while you're there, download my complimentary workbook designed to help you reflect, grow, and move towards mental wellness, happiness, and success. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next time. The rhythm of healing, the octaves method. O is for observation, through stillness we find meditation and breath work that quiet the mind. In silence we listen, the answers are clear, awareness emerges, dissolving the fear. C is for compassion, for self and for all, embracing the good, the struggles, the fall. With kindness we grow, we nurture, we mend, learning to love ourselves as we extend. T is for therapy, a path we explore. Daily we practice unlocking the door. From journaling to mindfulness, healing begins. Each step is a victory as peace settles in. A is for animals and laughter so bright, like children at a play, their joy taking flight. With playfulness and movement, we rediscover the way to heal through the fun that we often delay. V is for victuals, nourishing and pure, detoxifying the body and keeping us sure. We choose what we eat with intention and grace, fueling our journey at our own pace. E is for exercise, where movement is free. We stretch and we bend in sweet harmony. Flexibility grows with choices we make. In strength and in stillness, our bodies awake. S is for socialize, where self-growth begins. Others reflect our triggers and the places within. Through relationships, our true selves we find, growing and healing with each tie that binds. the Octaves method, where all behavior makes sense. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents.